Hello, everybody, and welcome in. I'm Sam Jones. Good to have you with us today on the home edition of Perspectives, continuing, of course, with the ebb and flow of the pandemic. I hope you're wearing a mask when you go out, and for goodness sake, don't forget it. Keep it extra in the car or in your purse or stuff it somewhere. Anyway, always take a mask with you. Our guest today, we're going to get into something that I'm going to be like a fish out of water on this one, so you're just going to have to work with me, and hopefully our two guests will chime in, and cover for me so I don't look like a complete idiot. Our first guest, Dr. Whiting-Madison. Dr. Madison, welcome to you.
Hi, thank you for having me.
All right, and Dr. Lori O'Malley. Welcome to you, Lori.
Thanks, glad to be here this morning.
They are both assistant professors of psychology and sociology at Rogers State University. And we're talking today about young people in crisis. It is a bigger problem than most folks realize. Am I correct, ladies?
Absolutely.
100%,
Absolutely.
yes.
One of the things that we want to talk about, what level of crisis, how to recognize it, and what to do about it. You know, so many people in my lifetime, and I've seen this, and I know you've seen it as you went through school, and probably see it now. People who practice psychology or analysis without a license. You know, you've met them at the drive-in. Mm-hmm. Oh, well, what Freud says is nobody has a clue what they're talking about. What do you consider a child or a young person in crisis to be?
Well, I think that is a person who is displaying some kind of different behavior or mannerisms or more verbalization or less than they normally do in their life. So with our situation here at RSU, we're both in the classroom. So when we notice someone who has been in our classes who frequently speaks up and participates in a conversation or, you know, does their homework, gets all their assignments turned in really early, and then all of a sudden the assignments are late, they're not showing up for class, or they've moved to the back row and are no longer participating anymore, those are some clear signs for us in the classroom that this student is probably going through something.
All right. What you have given me can be seen or picked up on or noticed by one who is not schooled in psychology or sociology. Am I correct?
Absolutely. Anyone, I mean, any teacher in the classroom or anyone in a lot of varying situations could notice a change in behavior or a change in mannerisms or demeanor or something like that. You don't have to be specially trained to pick up on these things. It helps to know your resources that are available and to pay attention to that student. I think with being at RSU, I think one of the best things about being here is that our classes are pretty small, right? So our student groups that we deal with every day tend to be pretty limited. And so we actually get to know students here, and we can tell when there is a change in demeanor. And we can tell, you know, where someone is all of a sudden speaking out in class maybe inappropriately, or they start bringing the conversation to themselves in class or sharing things that maybe you don't think they would have normally shared under other circumstances. So it's easy for us to identify those particular people and then follow up with them or do something that we would think would be appropriate to at least somehow intervene.
Dr. O'Malley, you're kind of being quiet on me, and I want you to jump in.
Yeah.
Every available opportunity.
Yeah, I tend to be really reserved. You can tell. Yeah.
We'll cut that out.
Okay. All right.
Both of you, I'm going to make a big assumption here. Both of you have encountered young people with clear indicators, have you not?
Oh, you know, absolutely. I'll go ahead and take the lead on that one. I oftentimes think that individuals will actually sign up for classes in psychology or sociology as a means to, hey, maybe I can figure out what's going on with myself. Maybe there's something I can learn about my family situation or my emotional situation that's going to enable me to process it better. And then, other times we do see those warning signs that Dr. O'Malley talked about. Other times they're even more blatant than that. I know I require a lot of reflection papers, and students will sometimes even just out and out come out with their issues in the reflection paper, giving us that door, that opportunity to reach out to them and help them connect with the awesome resources we do have available here at RSU.
Dr. O'Malley, you, in your training, also along the way, developed a bit of a writing skill. I think I've been told you do columns, or you also are involved in writing.
Yeah,
That's Dr. Whiting.
That's me, Dr. Whiting. Yes, I actually do maintain a biweekly column in the Bartlesville Examiner, just about how to stay more positive and how to notice when things are going on that you could kind of step up, take a lead with, how to help people in the community. And it's interesting, I get a lot of requests. Hey, would you talk about what mental health looks like in the elderly community? Hey, would you talk about these issues that we see in our community? And they reach out to me, and I will always address them and write about them in my column. It's actually been a lot of fun. I'm really enjoying it.
I have read, and understand I'm not trained in it, but I have read that the prefrontal cortex contains the value and moral decision-making areas of the brain. And those decisions are all made there. It's sort of interesting that part of the brain, according to what I've read, does not fully develop for most young people until around age 26. Dr. O'Malley, do you see young people past the age of 26 that might exhibit those characteristics?
Yes, I think sometimes we do see people that are still kind of, you might have, in your readings, you might have heard it referred to as the reptilian brain, where before we reach adolescence and that movement to adulthood and early adulthood, where things are, we're just kind of going along doing what we need to do to survive. And that includes interacting with other people and learning the ins and outs of more socially acceptable behaviors. And some people do kind of get caught up by their family situations or lack of socialization. They get caught or stuck in some of those stages that we wish they would have progressed through in at least until emerging adulthood. But I do know what you're talking about. There's some stuff in classes that we teach about developing relationships where you tend to not develop or not have a secured sense of values and ethics or a personal ethical code until you are about 25, 26. And then this time frame in college is really important for younger folks because it's their time to be away from their family of origin and experiment with how they really want their life to be and how they really want to interact with other people. And so then we find through research that about age 25, 26 is when things settle in. And that experimentation with all the wild college kind of stuff that people like to do and have the real college experience, all that kind of stuff kind of dwindles away and they start settling in and looking for meaningful relationships and trying to make meaningful connections with people.
And strong mental comparisons.
Yes.
The reptilian brain that you mentioned, if I understand it correctly, developmentally, we're talking about the brain stem developing up through the brain toward the front of the brain, the top front, which brings to mind something I see all the time. Young boys, young girls playing soccer, doing headers. How dangerous is that?
Well, I think do you want to talk about that?
Yes, I mean, I think it's extremely dangerous and, you know, for me, a little bit scary as a mom to watch our children literally put assault on an organ that is still developing is an absolutely, you know, terrifying phenomenon. And that's something we need to be really aware of. There is actually some really interesting studies about individuals coming out of the NFL that are citing all of these difficulties that, you know, they shouldn't be having if, you know, the proper measures were taken. You know, we'll go back in there. Your head's fine. You're fine. You're fine. We have made a lot of progress in that, but I definitely think there's a lot more growth that still has to occur.
I agree with that. I think we have made a lot of progress with some sports, particularly with football. And we've looked at some of the research from the NFL and I'm losing my words now. But anyway, so we've got more protective helmet pieces with football and coming on through, even through Tiny Tykes football and high school football that we find so important here in Oklahoma. But some of the other sports like soccer, where you're typically not wearing headgear, or baseball when you're up to bat and you do have that baseball helmet on, but the equipment is not as sophisticated as it would be for football. So when you're beamed by a fast pitch standing on the mound, that's a whole different experience than what you get in a football field. So there's all kinds of levels of injury and opportunity for injury, and yeah, it's a dangerous thing when you start having kids having repeated head injuries very early on in the sports that they play, and then trying to go on and progress on.
You know, it's really too bad we can't in some way get the attention of soccer coaches early on and have them steer the young ones away from headers. Because I got to tell you, that soccer ball comes sailing in from the 60-yard line, and they do a header on the opposing 20-yard line. That's going to do some serious jarring, and the goldfish are really going to stop swimming as fast as they should. I'll tell you what, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, I want to hear from both of you on crisis recognition and what steps to play or to take if you are trained and if you're not trained, and when to get involved. We'll be back with more right after this.